You're watching How to Be a Better Human. I am your host, Chris Duffy, and when it comes to fashion, my number one request from my clothing is that it is kind of innocuous. I don't want anyone to comment on my clothing. Now, today's guest, Diarra Bousso, is very much the opposite. She wears beautiful, big, fashionable clothes, and that is partly because she runs a fashion technology company called Diarra Blue. So she's supposed to look good in her clothes. She's supposed to make clothes that make other people look good. And guess what? She does. But how does she do it? She does it in a really interesting way because it's not only clothes that are beautiful, it's also clothes that are responsible, that take care of the people who work for her and that take care of the planet by creating far less waste than typical fashion. How does she do all that? Well, you're going to have to watch the episode to find out.
Hi, everyone. My name is Diarra Bousso. I'm the founder of Diarra Blue, a fashion and lifestyle brand rooted in sustainability. And my work focuses on how to use technology to humanize artistic expression.
Can you tell us about your background and what got you interested in sustainable design in the first place?
I grew up in Senegal. That's where my family is from. And I grew up in an artisan family. So my dad was a banker, but he was the only one who's ever gone to school in his whole family at the time, like elementary school. And he made it as far as, being a banker and being very successful. But all his siblings, all my cousins worked in the artisan world, especially leather. So I grew up around the word of sustainability. As a matter of fact, in my culture, there's no word for it. The closest thing is maybe life or common sense, because if you love something, you protect it. So I grew up seeing resources. I grew up seeing people, producing everything by hand, reusing every single part of, if you want to make a leather bag, you use the cow skin for the bag, the meat is using for food, the horns are going to be used for something, nothing goes to waste. And things were also made to last for a very long time. So if a dress was being made, it was made intentionally to be size inclusive and adjustable. So you'd have extra straps or elastics so that you could pass it across different people or generations. Growing up, I always wanted to be in the creative world. But I didn't have the courage. So I went and pursued finance and math because I was like, if my dad is so successful and he's a banker, if I am a banker, I will be successful too. So kind of buried my creative dreams and pursued that route and started on Wall Street. And I think I went through a quarter life crisis for 5 years between 23 and 28, where I became a painter, then I became a photographer, then I became a world traveler, then I became a cook. And then I became a math teacher and I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And little did I know, being in the math classroom and teaching math is what would kind of connect my two worlds in terms of science and art. And I started using math to design textiles, and that's what led to this company.
Tell me more about the connection between math and textiles, because I think that's often really surprising for people.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, textiles are just patterns, right? Art, drawing, sketches, everything is just a pattern. And I think for me, who didn't get trained formally in the art world, I got trained very formally in the math world and geometry and all of that stuff. But even as a student or in finance, math was very much related to the finance world. I never saw it as a creative thing. And then I became a teacher and I realized that most students absolutely hate math. My first job was an assistant. I was working in a school where all the kids who were failing math from 6th to 12th grade would come to me instead of going to math class. So I would help them with their homework. And I started realizing they don't hate math. They hate how they are taught. When you make it fun and make it creative, and it's if somebody likes music, I'll be like, okay, let's look at the lyrics of this song and count and look at the pattern there. If somebody likes drawing, okay, let's look at this flower and see what equations create this curve. So I kind of just found a way to gamify the whole math experience. And in the process of doing so, I realized that I was teaching myself how to connect math to patterns. And on my free time, I would use the same math I was teaching them to create shapes. It's how it started. It was honestly just for fun. And the intention was to help kids like math better. And then it turned into using it for work.
I taught 5th grade at an elementary school. And I loved being in school as a student, but I always just really struggled with math. That was my hardest topic. And I was surprised as a teacher to find that actually math was my favorite thing to teach, because the fact that I had struggled with it made it so that I really understood how to explain it, because if I could understand it, then they would too. And it was actually really hard to teach them writing, because I kind of naturally understood writing better. So I'd be like, well, you just make the sentence sound good. And they'd be like, but what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Whereas with math, I could say, here's why division works in this particular way. I didn't understand it either until I saw this. And I imagine that you probably had a similar experience of, there's something really nice about how with math, the pieces click into place.
Exactly.
And you understand this builds on this, builds on this.
Yeah, it's kind of like a puzzle. I think the satisfaction of understanding something is universal, right? Like when somebody struggles with something and then they find a way to make it click, it's like when you're solving a puzzle for hours and then finally it works and they match. It's such a big feeling. And I think I was able to get them to feel that way with art. It's like connecting math to patterns and art. And I think I just became addicted to that. And my kids loved it as well. So it just became a thing. Like on the weekends, I would just sit and sketch and use equation to get them to work. So I would show them on next Monday at school to get them excited. And all these patterns I was creating on the side were actually really beautiful. So I started posting them on social media, on Instagram, and just sharing them with people. And they were voting and saying, oh, we want this in a dress and we want this in pants. And I was like, oh, wait, what? Are you saying that I should go back to the fashion thing? But yeah, that's kind of what started this whole thing.
So Diarra Blue, you do things really differently than other fashion companies. And part of that comes from your unique background, both in math and having grown up in West Africa and Senegal, and then also in Norway. But part of it is also just, I think, a piece that is your values, right? Like you have this value of thinking about things that are built to last and future mindedness. And one of the interesting parts about the brand to me is that you highlight in a way that many other people don't, how making something easy doesn't actually mean you're making it better. I think often fashion is very easy, but it's not better.
Yeah, I think that in fashion, we've kind of trained ourselves for convenience. Like, you know, the fastest way you can get something, producing it in mass, creating so many sizes. For example, like you'll have a dress going from size 0 to 14, and each numerical size is a new iteration. And just creating so much like ease, but it's actually not easy at all. It's easy for the customer, but it's a very complicated system. It's very wasteful. I think it's a lazy system because it's a system that has existed and it's easy to plug into, but people don't really question it. And you know, why are they 4 seasons a year? They do fall, winter, spring, summer. Why are they 2 seasons? Why are they 4 seasons? Why are they like everything is actually not a rule. Like you can change it and you can do it your own way. I think for me, it's because I didn't come from this industry. I didn't even know what these rules were. One of my favorite quotes from Picasso is learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. But for me, I'm like, I don't even know the rules, so I break them all the time. So it's not even like I'm trying to be rebellious. I genuinely don't know. And I'm really embracing it now because I think in the beginning I had a little bit of imposter syndrome because I was like, oh, I didn't go to fashion school. I'm not based in New York. I don't have art background. And then I started realizing it's a huge strength because I'm starting from a blank canvas and I'm challenging so many things. And only after I started getting noticed by the press or the buyers, I realized, oh, this is really special. But there's a side of just like having values around waste and not being wasteful and preserving things. But also I think it's just being super naive from the start because I didn't really have a mold to follow. And that ended up being my biggest strength because I will question absolutely anything. And sometimes people who are like, you know, heritage fashion brands or people who are from the industry will question it at first, be like, why not? And I'm like, yeah, we should ask ourselves why not? And if, not just in fashion, but with any system, why not?
I think you have an incredible fashion brand, but I think also the approach that you take is a really important one, regardless of the industry that we're in. To say like, well, what would it be like if we rethought this? And why do we do it the way that we do? What if we did something that was better for you, for the environment, for the community, rather than just the least frictionless thing? So it's interesting to me to have that conversation with you because you're currently based in Silicon Valley. And I think you're in a part of the world that many of us associate, I certainly strongly associate with a place that is trying to remove as much friction as possible from life, right? Everything is like one click, it immediately arrives, things show up really fast. And you're kind of not in that mindset at all. So tell me about that, being a rebel in the place that you're in.
So I went to Stanford to get my master's in math education. And it's funny because coming from Wall Street, everybody who wanted to go to Stanford wanted to go to the business school and like, you know, build a massive company and raise tons of capital and all of it. So that's the first thing I did. I actually applied to business school because I wanted to just be able to show off on LinkedIn and feel cool. And when I got in, I realized, actually, I'm not doing this for the right reason because I'm going back to the world that I didn't want to be part of to begin with, which was this Wall Street fast-paced life. So I turned it down at the last minute and it created this massive crisis in my family, like, oh my God, you're so spoiled, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, it's not for me. And a year later, I realized I wanted to be a teacher. So I went to Stanford for teaching. And while I was there, I'm curious. So I still went to the business school and took a few classes, same for the design school. And I remember in the business school, there was a pitch competition where I was working on Diarra Blue at the time. It was not a company yet. And at the end of it, the professor was like really supportive because like, I had one of the best results in the competition and it was really good. And he's like, the next step is to go and raise a lot of capital and build this factory and stuff. I was like, I'm not doing that. and he was kind of disappointed. And I went like, no, I'm going to go and be a math teacher and keep learning, because the more I'm going to learn from the outside, the more I have my whole life to build this. And I think that was so weird. It almost felt like I was wasting his time to be doing all of these classes to say, no, I'm not going to pursue it right away and raise a ton of money. And it's like, the moment I raise money right away, it's going to be very easy for me to make mistakes because I'm not spending my money. Like I can waste somebody else's money and make these mistakes, but I really want to keep learning because I'm not trying to just build a fashion company. I'm trying to create change, like structural change in the industry that I'm learning from the outside. And that's not going to follow a blueprint, this blueprint of raising tons of money, starting a factory, producing inventory, stocking it somewhere. Like, I'm not doing that. I went and pursued the teaching route, but in my heart, I knew I was going to pursue this eventually. So I'm teaching in the daytime, and in the evening, I'm using my equations to create prototypes and sending them on Instagram. And every 24 hours, I'm getting all this feedback, literally, like, of what I should produce. So I learned how to design textiles the formal way. So I would create these patterns, show them, and I'll actually get them printed in factories. And I would buy all the textiles and send them to our factory in Senegal, but not produce anything. So the opportunity for inventory was limitless, but there was no cost. All I had was raw materials. Little did I know that business model was going to be what made my company successful. And I still haven't raised any funding, and we're still cash flow positive 5 years later. It's because I don't have inventory. Like a typical fashion brand spend a lot of cash flow in inventory. I can launch a collection today. If it flops, I literally don't lose anything. I'll be like, okay, fine, let's launch something new next week. And that whole model allowed me to, get into massive partnerships with other retailers and create a very risk-free way of working with us, because it's all drop ship. Like you can order something on our website today and then you receive it in 7 days, but it actually gets made tomorrow. We operate like a restaurant. So everything is modular.
Well, the interesting part is that, to me, one of the interesting parts of this is that it's not only a really effective business model for making it so that you're able to have this successful business, but it's also a business model that creates a lot less waste.
What we don't realize that waste is not just about the environment. And, when you're like, oh, waste, environment, you're so cute. It's also financial. Like, if you think about it, you're wasting money. And the industry is built into wasting money. Like, you're meant to overproduce to sell a certain percentage because the rest is going to go on markdown or get sent to the trash or something. So it's built into the process. So you're basically making a business model in which you have a waste factor, which is ridiculous to me. It's like, why would you do that? Versus the model we've built is super reactive. So when I think about a supply chain, we don't have a supply chain. Actually, we have a demand chain. So everything we do starts from the demand. And as a result, everything we produce, we're not guessing anything. Like, we produce what we produce today because it was demanded yesterday or last week. So the whole operations work this way. And the factory, the one I started in Dakar, and now we work with partner factories, it's like a restaurant. We buy all the raw materials based on what we see in the crowdsourcing that people like, and we leave it there. And every day, like, you go to a restaurant, you can order chicken parmesan, or you can get a Caesar salad, you can get any assortment of it, but the materials stay the same. The difference with the restaurant is that our materials are not perishable. They are not fabrics. There's always going to be waste from like scraps and cutting and stuff, but then we don't have the typical waste in this industry where it's like one garbage truck full of clothes goes to a landfill every second. That's how this fashion industry works. We don't have to deal with that, both financially and environmentally, because we are being responsive. And community is also super important, because in this whole process, you have to build relationship with your customers. You're constantly asking them what they want to see. It's also humbling, because as a designer, I'm like, oh, I'm so smart. I have all these ideas. You put it out there and they're like, no, we hate it. It's like, come on, I'm really glad you're telling me right now before I spend all this money on it. So I know, thank you. I'll do something else and I'll come back to you. It's very humbling, and I really like that experience too.
Can you describe what the style of your clothes is, or what they look like?
Yeah, I would say in the beginning, it was really much like I was stuck on Wall Street and I was daydreaming of being on vacation. That's how this whole thing started, like from dreams. So I would say most of the collection was very resort focused at first. Now it's full ready to wear, but at first it was like kaftans. And if you watch The White Lotus, what all those rich ladies are wearing in these hotels and are just super relaxed and everything is loose and flowy and you can eat everything you want and you just look great in all of it and you just look rich and relaxed all the time. Now, that is the brand's aesthetic, literally. I think White Lotus is the way to visualize it. I come from a culture that's very colorful. So like prints are important. Everything is a print. I mean, we have a few solid pieces, but even when it's solid, it has a bit of texture or something exciting to it. But Senegalese people are not plain at all. We like color, we like prints, we like geometry, we like flowers. So like we have a lot of that. And I would say it's just clothes that make you feel beautiful and happy. Like every time I see someone wearing our clothes or just I am wearing it, it just lifts my mood because there's such a beautiful energy behind it. It's all crowdsourced. So it has to be beautiful because people vote and we know what they want.
They're really beautiful works of art, but also I think the flexibility of them, that they aren't just for one size and that they are designed to last for you, is also something really, sometimes you have like a piece that you buy that would be like it's a really well made, say a sweater, and you're going to keep this for years. But if your body changes, well, the sweater's probably not going to fit you as well. And I think you have a really interesting thing, which is also very much embedded in Senegalese fashion, which is that because they're flowing and because they are, they're not tightly fitted, they can accommodate different changes in your body and in different, if you need to be warmer or more covered, or if you need to be looser and less covered, that they're able to adjust.
I think there's something called emotional sustainability that we don't think about, or like emotional durability. And it's like when you buy something and you get attached to it to wear it longer. And I think the more your clothes make you feel happy and good about yourself, the more that's going to happen. Like if you buy a set of jeans that are a size 2, and you get pregnant and they can't close anymore and the zipper breaks, the emotions around those jeans are really bad. Like you just feel bad about it. It's like the jeans just insulted you. But if you have a dress that no matter what your body does, it just embraces you, there's this emotional thing of like, this is my friend. Like this dress is my friend and there's love here. And we think about that when designing. When I'm designing things, I mean, we have our fit models and everything, but I like to, me and my mom try everything on and see how we live in it. Like there are clothes that I wear for like 6 months before actually putting them in the line, just to see how I feel, how do they wash, what is it doing with my body, how it does in different climates. And there's this experience around how I want people to feel in the clothes is super important, and how long we want you to be wearing them. And there's also a convertibility element. I would say a lot of our clothes are convertible or adjustable. Like you'd have a dress that has a like attached shawl into it, but the shawl can be removed. So you can just wear the shawl by itself or the dress by itself. We have these jumpsuits that are convertible to be pants or to be tied 19 different ways. Like that element is super important because you can wear it 10 times and each time it looks different versus wearing it once and be like, okay, people have seen it, I cannot wear it anymore. But every time it's going to be like, oh, are you wearing a new dress? So you think about all of that from like a durability standpoint.
Okay, so I want to talk about some of the philosophical parts of this. And I also want to talk about the Senegalese parts of this. I personally have a connection to Senegal. I lived there and worked there. And so
wait, what? This is how we should have started.
I know. Well, I wanted to start with you and then, not make it about me. But I studied at Université Cheikh Anta Diop. And so,
oh my God, yeah, that's my hometown.
Oh, really? You were from Dakar originally?
I'm from Dakar, yeah.
Okay, where in Dakar?
Mermoz.
Oh, wow. That's like where I lived. I was in
oh my God.
Cité des Professeurs. Yeah.
That's literally, okay,
right next
that's
door.
Like a 5-minute walk.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
why
I
buy
walked
my
past
fruits.
every day.
Yeah. Oh, when was this? What year?
It was, let's see, it was 2008, and then I went back in 2010.
Oh my God, yeah, you are in my home, literally. Probably pass in front of my house every day.
Well, so I wanted to ask you about a couple of things that are like, come to mind with me having spent time in Senegal. Like you said, there's this very big part of culture is having fun colors and making a statement with how you dress. And for me, as a person who wasn't always a super confident person and also was like a teenage boy and then a young adult man, like a lot of the way that I would have said I related to fashion was trying to be invisible, right? Like wearing something that's just like, no one's going to comment on this. Yeah. And so it was fun. It was really interesting to then go to Senegal and like my Senegalese friend one day, like as a present, bought me like a big, a big boo-boo. And I put that on and I walked down the street and people were like, hey, looking good. Like people were like giving me compliments. And I was like, oh, that's actually really fun. I never experienced that piece before. And I feel like that spirit of like celebrating how you look and complimenting a stranger is so apparent in the clothes that you design. Like they're the kind of things where people are going to go, I love that. You look
Yes.
great. It's not quiet clothing.
Not at all. We don't want to be quiet about anything. And that's the part of my culture that I wanted to bring. I have this group chat with my family. I would say 90% of the conversation are us complimenting each other. Like my dad would be going to a business meeting and, he will take a selfie, and the dad selfie, like he doesn't know the angles and everything, but he will take a selfie and be like, oh, killing it with that hat, crushing it since 1958. What a baddie you are.
That.
Like everybody's going to add, like you have to add a comment and a compliment.
Yeah.
And that's what all we do all day. It's hilarious. It doesn't matter how sad you are. You open that group, there's like 50 messages every hour, and it's just compliments, emojis, ridiculous laughter. And that's our culture. Like, if you have an event in Senegal, it's not about you, it's about the guests. You have a poet called the griot, I'm sure you know, who's basically singing your praises. So you'll come in and be like, hey, Chris, and they'll make a poem about you and the boo-boo, and it's going to have a rhyme for each verse. And they'll name you and praise you in front of everyone with a mic and drums. And you cannot erase yourself. You have to be really much like, you cannot be self-effacing in any way. So your outfits have to hit, the way you carry yourself, your attitude, your smile, your energy. And I wanted to just put all of that into the clothes we design. And whenever I get feedback from customers or they tag us on Instagram, it's always, oh, we got so many compliments. I'm like, yep, that was the plan.
That's the really good part. I also want to say a piece that I noticed while I was in Senegal that I think is a darker side to the fashion industry in the United States and in Europe that I think is invisible to many people, but is very visible when you're there, which is that, let's say you're just the regular consumer of clothes in the United States and you're done with a t-shirt or a dress or a pair of pants. You think that you're being responsible because what you do is you go and you give it to a charity that says they're going to reuse it, right? And often those big pallets of clothes then get shipped into other parts of the world, like West Africa. And, I'd be walking around in rural Senegal and I'd see a kid wearing I won the best clam bake in Rhode Island. And you'd be like, what? How did you get that shirt? But there's also this huge amount of textile waste that is just polluting the water, polluting the land, is just actually being shipped to a place that did not create the waste.
Exactly. And I think that's the part that's so unfair, because I think people don't see, it's like, oh, charity, I'm donating my clothes, I'm being a better person. But you're donating it to a person who didn't ask for it. And you're also killing the local economy where you donate it, because these clothes coming in from the US, from these charities, they sell for close to nothing. But then meanwhile, you have local artisans there who are making good quality clothes from locally grown cotton, handmade, with heritage, with all of the history. But they have a hard time selling them because we're being flooded with all this secondhand clothing that people here just are throwing in some container. I think it would be good for people from the Western world to actually understand really the impacts of this, because it does affect us significantly. And a lot of those clothes are not wanted. I think people assume, oh, I'm just sending it to the poor country and they'll wear it. I'm sorry, we have style. Fashion level I've seen in Senegal and the scrappiness of people, regardless of their social class, is unmatched. So that big sell Rhode Island t-shirt, if you send us 1 million of those, we don't want to wear them. You want to wear something beautiful. You want to wear something that fits, that looks good, that we chose. So that's something that I think it's worth talking about for sure.
I think that in addition to the creative and artistic and personal story that's really interesting about your work is I also think there's quite an important and subtle political story here. The Zambian economist Dambisa Moyo has a really powerful book, and it's about how the Western world has often undermined local economies and undermined local independence by, so-called charity. So if you send 10,000 tons of free rice to an area, well, that feeds the people who get the rice. But then the local rice farmers are completely out of business and they can no longer produce rice, because how could they compete with free rice? And that has very much happened in the fashion industry. And you are consciously employing these skilled craftspeople who are in Senegal, who are in many ways getting undermined by this weird reverse cycle of fast fashion.
Absolutely. And I think even culturally, there's also the erasure of fashion by doing that, because you're sending, like you said, with the the rice farmers, right? You cannot compete with free rice. You cannot compete with these donated clothes that are, they're still going to get sold, but at very low prices. So local artisans do suffer, and you're erasing them in their skills, because it's how am I going to sell something that I took hours to make in good quality versus something that just came in from Rhode Island that's a few cents? The donation of a shirt from a charity standpoint, it makes you feel good. You just went to Goodwill or wherever, dropped something, and you're like, oh, I did a good act. I donated my shirt. But what about you do something that's more sustainable and you actually empower and support those industries or those people in a way that they can continue to self-sustain?
It also goes to an idea and a phrase that I learned while I was in Senegal, a Wolof phrase that I thought was very powerful and I think about a lot, Mbolo Modole, which is like, together we're strong, right? Like the union creates the strength.
Is the strength.
That's not something I often think about when I'm buying clothes, that even the purchase of clothes can be a way of demonstrating that care for each other and that virtue of community mindedness.
We are all connected. I mean, we can have boundaries between us and countries and languages, but at the end of the day, we are one people. I mean, that's how I think about the world. And if you think about yourself, not as this tiny little ant in the system, but like you are the system. Every choice you make impacts the system. And when you think about your purchases, not just for clothes, but I think it can become almost second nature. Like, how is all these decisions affecting the overall system? I think you're adding to it or you're taking away from it. Just having that mindset will help, I think, make a lot of better decisions in general, especially with purchasing and sustainability as a whole.
Someone who is thinking about, wants to think about their clothes or their fashion differently, what advice would you have for them? What are maybe 3 things that they should think about differently when they go about looking in their closets or purchasing new clothes?
I would say, I think it's important to have a capsule wardrobe. And what I call a capsule wardrobe is like your essential basics that you could wear all the time. Like for me, it's like a black pair of jeans, black pants, a plain white or black shirt, things that are just timeless. And then have your dramatic add-ons that really make the statement. Like I will always wear all black with a dramatic Diarra blue kimono on it, or a dramatic jacket or a denim jacket. Like there's all these accessories. So I would say, I'm sure everybody looking in their closets and saying, oh, I have nothing to wear, you can always find some capsule pieces there that are timeless and focus on those and then make that the core and then see what you can add to it. I also think we should think about shopping in a way of buying things that are complementary. So I think with online shopping, it's so easy to just want everything. And I shouldn't be saying this because I run a fashion brand. I want you to buy everything. But also, sometimes we send a newsletter telling you don't buy anything. You use what you have and here's how to wear it differently. So like, how can you get, these colorful, beautiful pants you bought last year? How can you bring them back to life this year, but with another way of styling it where it looks completely different? How do you make your purchases complementary and I think about this a lot with our collections as well. Like, how can you buy 5 things? But, a mix of sets and dresses and whatnot. But for those 5 things, actually create 10 to 15 outfits because, permutations, commutation, that's the math in me. And then the third one is just kind of be mindful about everything you're doing with your wallet, you're voting for something, right? So everything you purchase, always ask yourself, what am I voting for here? Like, I'm voting with my dollars for something. Yeah, it could be beautiful style, but what is the tag inside saying? Like for me, buying something, a dress for $8 on some fast fashion website, you're voting for exploitation. You're voting for waste. Like there is no way somebody can produce a dress for $8 with the right fabric and be paid the right wages. If that happens, it's because somebody has been exploited in the supply chain and you are voting for that, right? So like just ask yourself those questions, and I think it's just common sense. Like, do these numbers actually make sense? Like, oh yeah, I just did a shopping haul with $50 and I got 20 dresses. Like, how? How does that even make any sense logically? And like, what had happened for these dresses to get to you? I think those are difficult questions and conversations to have with yourself, but I think they are important.
Another thing that I think is really interesting about you and your work is, in some ways, you are supporting these very old-fashioned, traditional ways of making things, having a skilled artisan making something on demand rather than creating a ton. But in other ways, you are very much using your background in math and in technology, and you're using these very new technologies as well, right? Like there's artificial intelligence is involved in your work. So can you talk about the blend between old and new and how you think about that from a values perspective? I'm actually really interested in too, right?
Oftentimes, the moment you drop words like AI and tech and it's the antithesis of artisan craftsmanship. Like it's just 2 words that don't talk to each other. Like technology is just a tool. It doesn't matter. Like it's just like you using a typewriter before and now you have a printer. But ultimately, what matters is the quality of the letter you're writing. If you're writing a love letter, it doesn't matter if you write on a typewriter on a printer. On a printer, you can make more of them and send them out faster and maybe meet your love faster. But the letter content has to be good. You have to have passion in your love letter. You have to write it well. You have to have skill. You have to understand language. So that was the kind of example I like to give. And I think in fashion, for me, technology is what allows me to actually humanize this whole thing. Because think about it. If an artisan takes forever to make a dress manually, because we don't have an industrial factory. It's all like work. I call it a workshop, right? And if they're gonna take all this time doing all this work, it better be the right work. I don't want to guess. I want to give them exactly what they need to produce. And to do that, technology helps me crowdsource really fast. I could use AI or math or whatever to create these prints or like these ideas of the prints and the tones and the things I want to put out there. I can put them on digital avatars. Within 24 hours, I know what to do. And that's the part that, for me, that is super strong, because technology allows me to test and learn and figure out what is right fast. And then the production and all of that can take its time and be done right. Versus if I didn't have technology and I still wanted to do this artisanal way of things, now I'm subjecting them to all this work with a lot of waste, because they'll be producing all these things that nobody likes. And then what do we do with it, right? So that's kind of how I blend the two words. And I think they can be very complementary if used the right way. I don't see a word where I'm going to be like, 3D printing dresses and all of that. Like, it's just, I want human hands touching the products. So as long as the tech is more from a data, information, accuracy, like I want to know I'm wrong faster than everyone else, basically.
I think with you, there's this really interesting piece, which is right now, there are these incredibly powerful new technologies that are being developed, but they are often being developed by and for, I would say, not just by, but for people with one very specific background, right? Like wealthy white men who went to one of 20 different colleges in the United States, or maybe a few in Europe. And so I think the idea of like, what happens when a powerful technology then gets used by someone who can bring a completely different perspective, right? Like you have this history of understanding how fashion works in Senegal, of understanding what it looks like on the ground, and how could technology change that?
Yeah. And I think this is something that honestly I learned in the classroom. It was like how having a different perspective can really shift things. Same for fashion. Technology for me was, I'm working all the time. I don't have time to make all these drawings and create all these textiles and then have them made and pay all this money and create all this waste. How can I use technology to get to my answer quicker? And still make people feel community. Like technology allows me to do that. That's good technology. That's like humanizing the whole experience. Back then, like rendering images took forever and it was just super, super slow. But it was all generative stuff that was faster than sitting down and taking 3 days to draw one textile versus being able to create 100 iterations in one day and get answers. Like technology oftentimes is thought about in terms of efficiency and saving money and making money and all of it. But for me, it was honestly about how do I use technology to not waste my time and to not waste resources and people's time. And naturally, saving money and making money comes with it because you're saving resources and optimizing. So
some of my discomfort with AI is often that it seems like it's built where at its core, it is taking human work and then devaluing it, right? Like it is like anonymously built on all this work that people put their blood, sweat, and tears into. And then it says like, actually, I'm the genius machine. And because of that, and it kind of makes a lot of people's work invisible. Are we buying into a framework that says these few powerful people can take the work of less powerful people, and that's something that is okay to build the future on? And I don't know the answer, but I'm curious what your perspective is.
And I fully agree with you. I think when I first started seeing like these AI art models, in the very beginning, I don't know if you remember, it would take a picture and tell you the Picasso version of it and then the Monet version of it. And it was just so lame, to be honest. And I remember talking to a museum here that I was working with, and they mentioned that what they hate about AI art is that a lot of art is about history and sources and citing. Like you'd put a work and then you have to cite the references. You have to cite the inspiration, the history. And AI kind of erases all of that and just create derivative stuff.
Yeah.
The way I use it in particular is that, I don't know, let's say I want to do something about a flower garden as a print. I can easily sketch a flower garden in like 30 seconds with doodles, and it's going to be hideous. But then I can plug that into AI and say, take my sketch and add green and purple and make the flowers fill up the screen and blah, blah, blah. So in a way, it's kind of based on my work or like on old prints I've designed and things. And I think my work has a very clear signature when you look at it, where you can see it's consistent. But I think with all these technologies, it goes back to intention, right? You have to be really mindful. And you have to be very clear in like, what is the message that you're trying to give? Like the message I'm trying to give is, hey, I want to develop and work on things, but before I put so much effort into it, I want to know if you like it. For me, it's a prototyping tool. That's the angle with the AI and the generative stuff or math or anything that's like technology driven is really like prototyping and testing.
Yeah.
And then understanding what do I want to put human sweat and tears into.
That tracks for me. And I also think that, look, it would be relatively easy for someone to set up a shop that's called like Mara blue. One word, and then they could use AI and copy a lot of your stuff. And even if the fashion looked very similar, I think that fashion would be worth less, because I think that your story and the care and the thought and the philosophy behind it, I think that actually imbues the physical objects with value in a way that someone's copy would not. I really believe that. And I believe that about a lot of people's work as artists.
Yeah, and I believe it too. I think that's what makes art. Like, what makes something stand in a museum be worth so much and the print copy on the street is not, is because people feel that energy. I think authenticity is value. And it's something you cannot explain, but you can feel. And I think that's what with art. I love this quote that's saying art wasn't supposed to look nice. It was supposed to make you feel something. You can't explain it. And I think when something is done authentically with the right intention and the right way, you'll just feel it. Because in this world of AI, it's getting a lot easier to copy people and replicate, but you cannot replicate authenticity.
Diarra Bousso, thank you so much for being on the show. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.